Have you ever heard the term, "it is what it is"? It's usually an admission of defeat. I can't do anything about this situation. Where does that come from? We're going to talk about presumed beliefs, things that we think are true and automatically assume are true, but maybe are not. I'm going to give you concrete examples. Then at the end of the episode, we're going to ladder on how do you change your thoughts so you can generate a new emotion and take the action you need to take to get the results that you want, instead of just saying, well, it is what it is. Hello and welcome to Unlock Your Life. I'm your host, Jennings Smith. Wherever you're listening to this, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends. It really helps the algorithm. It helps me reach more people to help them unlock their life. Have you ever heard this saying, "it is what it is"? Where does that come from? Well, I was talking to a guy the other day who was in a foreclosure. He was losing his home and somebody was swooping in, buying the second mortgage and taking the property. It really made no sense because his underlying mortgage was only $100,000, the second mortgage was $120,000, and the house was worth over $500,000. But at some point, this gentleman decided, well, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. He buried his head in the sand and bam, he's getting his house taken. The foreclosure is done. And, the next guy is going to profit $200 and something thousand that this guy could have made if he'd just taken action. So this saying, "it is what it is," I hear it all the time. Why do we say that? It's a saying that I hate, but I have found myself thinking it and saying it from time to time. Well, I think it stems from a presumed belief about the way that things are. Just the reality of what we accept, this is the way it is. If you think about this saying, where does the male baldness pattern gene come from? I'm going to take off my hat and let you look at my hair here. So this is something that I suffer from a little bit. I've resisted. But if you're listening to the podcast, you're probably thinking, well, I've heard that the male pattern baldness comes from your mother's side, right? If your mother's father or brothers or uncles or whatever, if they were bald, then you're going to go bald. And that's just the way it is. Maybe you've heard about the dog years, right? What is 1 year in a dog's life? You're probably all saying to the radio or your phone, well, it's 7 years, right? 7 years in dog years is 1 year in human years. These are beliefs that are just commonly accepted as fact and true because somebody repeated it at some point. You heard that and you thought, well, that makes sense. That's probably true. So now it is true. And now you're repeating it. Well, the fact is not true. Right? Male pattern baldness comes from a lot of different sources. I mean, I look at my own father. My dad is, fairly bald. He's thinning up top big time. But his brother has a full head of hair. They both obviously have the same mother and paternal or maternal grandfather. So there's a breakdown right there in my own family. As far as like dog years, I mean, it really has to do with the species of the dog, the size, the weight, the health, the diet. There's a whole lot of factors that go into the lifespan of a dog. It can't just be simplified into 1 year in dog years to 7 years. Like it just doesn't work that way. And the real answers are far more complex. So you could have a statement saying, well, male baldness comes from your mother's side, and maybe that's 50, 60, 70% true. There's a partial truth to it, but it's not completely true. So why do we hold on to these beliefs that maybe we don't even question anymore instead of seeking out what really is when we don't really have all the facts? And how do we make decisions and better decisions when we don't have all the facts? So I'm reading a book right now. It's called Thinking in Bets. It's by Annie Duke, who was a former World Series of Poker champion. And this book was recommended to me by actually one of my investors who's quite a bit more successful than I am. So he said, "Hey, Jennings, I love this book. Read this book." So I picked it up, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. And it's really been fairly interesting because she talks about when you want to be right, it is very painful to be proven wrong or to be wrong. In fact, in betting, right, in poker, the win of $100 it only feels as good as the loss of $50, right? So losing is twice as painful as winning, right? So losing $100 is equal to winning $200 versus $100. So we really don't like to be wrong. And when you make these stands of it is what it is, or this is the way it is, this is the decision I made, and this is the truth, whether that be political, whether that be business, etc., you're saying I'm 100% right and the other side, the opposing view, is 100% wrong. When really, that's fairly not the case, often not the case. Because when we go into something saying, I have to be right, I'm 100% sure on this. Well, to switch our opinion, that's going to be psychologically painful, and our brain wants to protect us from that. So she thought about, well, what if you get challenged on that? Like, let's say you made the statement to me, male pattern baldness comes from your mother's side. What if I said to you, all right, you want to bet? Let's put $10,000 on that statement. Let's put $10,000 on that statement. You put up 10K, I'll put up 10K. We'll hold it in Laura's escrow account. We'll hash out the facts, and we'll see who wins that bet. Well, are you reeling back a little bit? Well, oh, hold on a second. Maybe I'm not so sure about that. I wonder if I missed something. It was a thing to say, but I'm not really willing to back that with $10,000 in cold hard cash. You know what? I'm 70% on that. I'm not really quite sure that I know $10,000 worth that I want to bet on that statement. And so you don't want to do that in regular conversation, right? You're at the cocktail party and somebody says something. You don't want to come, hey, you want to bet on that? Like, pretty soon you're not going to be invited to any cocktail parties. But the point is asking yourself that. When you find yourself making a statement, making an admission, this is the way it is. I can't do this, or you can't do it that way, or I can do this, or I'm sure I can do that, or I'm sure I can't do that. Asking yourself, well, hold on. You want to bet? Like, do you want to bet yourself? Are you 100% on that? So why do we go to anecdotal stories? Why do we just jump to conclusions? Why do we want an easy, quick, simple solution? Well, it's probably because it takes a lot of work to really get all the facts and to gather that data and to know for sure about something, right? It takes mental work, and most of the time we're just not willing to go through those mental machinations to really uncover the truth. And in a lot of instances, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to spend a month studying dog years versus human years or male pattern baldness. But when it has to do with something with my business, like should I refinance this building? Should I sell this building? Should I purchase another apartment complex? Should I split up with my partner? Should I fire this employee? On and on and on. It really does matter. And the insidious thing about this is we are very results driven, right? If we did something and we got a bad result, our brain gets burned. Like that was the wrong decision. You made the wrong decision there because look at the result. Well, that's not always the case, right? Because there's luck that has to do with stuff, and then there's skill. If you think about the world of poker, the best hand is ace-ace, right? Pocket aces if you're playing Texas Hold'em. You've got two aces, it's a great hand, versus 2-7 offsuit. Those are statistically the worst hands in poker because you can't make a great pair with it or whatever. But sometimes the 2-7 beats the double aces. If the flop comes out and there's 2 7s and a 2, well, you've got a full house and the other guy's got a pair of aces. That's not going to beat your full house. So he may get lucky and still win that hand, even though the right decision was to play those double aces because statistically, probability-wise, that was the right move, even though you got a bad result from it. And so this stuff can get, tricky. So I'm going back to it is what it is. Thinking about this, I want you to think about a situation that maybe seems tough, right? It's hard to deal with. You're not exactly sure what to do. And so you're just saying, well, it is what it is. I was faced with this just 2 days ago. I was thinking about scaling my portfolio, actually. I've got about 1,100 units right now and thinking about growing another 1,000 apartment units, right? And I'm thinking, man, that's going to be a lot of work. I don't necessarily have the infrastructure to do that. I'd have to hire on more teammates. I'd have to have more partners. We'd have more property management. And you know what? It is what it is. just going to kind of like take my portfolio and roll with it. I don't know that I want to scale another 1,000 doors because of the problems that I just maybe don't want to solve or don't think are solvable, etc. And so I've been kind of stuck there. Right? I've still been closing some deals, but I haven't been aggressively closing things like I have in the last 4 years. So I decided to, in reading this book, I decided to, you know what, I'm going to look at this attitude I've been having, and why am I having this attitude? Is it even right? And so I wrote down, what is my circumstance, right? My circumstance is not closing as many deals as I did in prior years, okay? And then I looked at the thoughts surrounding that, and I wrote out all of the things, the negative thoughts that are rolling in my mind, all those, woe is me, victim mentality, it is what it is type scenarios. And I said, okay, well, it's going to be a lot of work. I'm going to have more partners. I'm going to have to take on more debt. I don't know if this is what God wants me to do. Do I really have the management team in place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just wrote all that stuff with no judgment on myself. I just wrote down all the negativity and all the things that were floating around in my brain. And then I looked at what emotions are those generating, right? Well, those are generating negative emotions. I feel bad. I feel scared. I feel weak. I feel like stuck, paralyzed, et cetera, et cetera. And so then what action is that translating into? Well, it's translating into no action. It's translating into not really doing anything, not making offers. But then the magic starts to happen, right? Because I look at my circumstance, it's the same circumstance, and I think, okay, let me identify these thoughts and let me create a new thought around that. So in creating the new thought, it's like, well, okay, there are partners that you already have, that you've already partnered with, that are doing really, really good job, right? And you could do more deals with them. They're scaling their infrastructure, they're scaling their team, you could piggyback on with them. You're doing a lot with hard money lending, and that's going really, really well. You could continue to grow that. You actually have 2 deals under contract right now, and you can press those forward and close those deals. They're solid deals, and that's going to put 2 more wins in your pocket and create more momentum there. And it sounds silly, but in just writing out these new thoughts and refuting the false information, the false presuppositions, things that I was kind of taking for granted, right? Because it's like, oh, well, if you don't have the management team, what if you only bought in the areas where you already have great managers? What if you only expanded in the areas where you have good deals and you have a good system set up and good property managers? What if you did more work with, Yaden and Crystal, who you trust, and bought more in your local market, right? And so then what kind of emotion is that generating? Well, it's generating good emotions, positive emotion. Okay, I can do this. This isn't going to be a problem. This isn't going to be any harder than what I've already done. It's actually going to be easier. And those emotions are going to generate action, right? And case in point, action, I've got a 25 portfolio house deal under contract. I've got a commercial real estate deal under contract in my hometown. I just went out this morning and toured a property, another $1 million deal in the Charleston area for another commercial deal. And I'm looking at maybe making an offer in on that. And if the numbers look good, I'll probably just, throw in an offer and see what they say to my number. And I'm already making progress towards this just by isolating those thoughts and refuting it is what it is. So what scenario are you faced with where you're saying this to yourself? And I want you to, with no judgment, to write out those thoughts that are creating that. This woe is me, this victim mentality, I can't do it, these are the problems I'm facing. And I'm not saying that those problems are not valid and that they're not real. But can you look at it from the other side of the coin? Can you look at it from someone that's saying to you, you want to make a bet? You want to make a bet that you can't buy more real estate? You want to make a bet that you can't find a good manager? You want to make a bet that you can't keep it on track? You want to make a bet? No, you don't. Because those things aren't necessarily true. I mean, look at Elon Musk. He's putting rockets in space. He's catching rockets somehow and reusing rockets. I'm sure NASA said for 50 years, well, you send a rocket into space and the thing gets destroyed on reentry and we lose $2 billion on this rocket, but it is what it is. That's just the way it is. That's the way it's done. Until somebody looked at that problem from a different perspective and said, well, what if we could catch that rocket? What if we could reuse that rocket? What if we could lower the cost of putting satellites in space and eventually colonizing Mars or whatever he's going to do? He's not thinking it is what it is. He's not thinking status quo, and he's accomplishing crazy feats. He's accomplishing new things and really leading the industry in space exploration. And it's inspiring, simply because he's not willing to say it is what it is. So whatever you're struggling with, if it's finding a good deal, right? Oh, everything's overpriced. Nobody wants to sell at a fair market. I can't find anything good that cash flows. It is what it is. Nobody wants to invest with me. Nobody's going to partner with me on a deal. I don't know anybody that has $100,000. It is what it is. I can't get a loan. I can't qualify. Even if I found a good deal, there's no way I could get a $3 million loan. It is what it is. And when you're thinking that, whether subconsciously or consciously, you are not going to take action, right? Because the emotions surrounding those things are totally negative, and they're going to stop you in your tracks. And I'm challenging you to write that down. Who could help me get this loan? Who could invest with me? Maybe my pitch isn't right. Maybe the way I'm presenting these deals isn't right. Maybe there's somebody that can help me present this better. Maybe there's somebody that could raise the capital for me. You know what? Maybe there's one more broker I could call that does have a good deal. Maybe this deal is overpriced and I'm thinking it's only worth 60, 70% of what they're asking. What if I still made the offer? What if they accepted it? What if I refused to say it is what it is and let my goals and my dreams and my future die because I'm too afraid to look at something from the other perspective? So that's my word for you guys today. Appreciate you. Once again, if you're liking this podcast, if you're enjoying the message, drop me a review, hit the subscribe button, give me a like. I appreciate each and every one of you. Talk to you soon. Spend some time this week to unlock your life. Peace.